Tier 1, these are Barry's rankings, obviously, and tiers. Number 1, Christian McCaffrey at the top, alongside Austin Ekeler, friend of the show.
Yeah.
Barry, why are these two in their own tier, the best of tiers, Tier 1?
Well, because they are multifaceted. These are guys that obviously can honestly win you the league. They have the ability to be elite. We've seen it from both these guys before. They are touchdown machines. They are involved in the passing game as well. Austin Ekeler is one of 3 running backs since 1970 with 18 touchdowns and over 100 receptions in a season. The only other guys that have done that, LaDainian Tomlinson, first ballot Hall of Famer for the Fantasy Hall of Fame, and oh, by the way, Chris McCaffrey, the other guy we're talking about here, right? His past 3 seasons that he's played at least 16 games, McCaffrey, over 1,800 yards from scrimmage. He's averaged at least 5 receptions per game every season of his career. He played 10 full games with the Niners last year. He scored in 8 of them. And then again, Austin Ekeler, friend of the podcast, 1,500 or more scrimmage yards 3 of the last 4 seasons, 38 touchdowns over the last 2 years. And I think Kellen Moore coming to Los Angeles helps that offense, will open it up more. The addition of Quentin Johnson, they're going to stretch the field more. It's going to be a more efficient offense. It's just really, really good.
There's just no way these two can fail without injury. And I don't think you can say that about the next guys on the list.
That's fair.
Let's get into Tier 2, starting with Bijan Robinson at 3. It sounded like just on the outside looking in for Bijan of Tier 1. Number 4, Saquon Barkley, followed by Nick Chubb at number 5. What do you think there, Barry?
Yeah, so we'll go through this. I'll say this as I was borderline wanting to put Bijan Robinson in Tier 1. He has that potential. Yep. He's also got Arthur Smith, who refused to throw to Kyle Pitts, who might give 12 carries combined to Cordero Patterson and Tyler Gill. There's just no telling what Arthur Smith may do. I will say just overall, as we look at the overall ranks, the reason that McCaffrey and Ekeler aren't 1-2 in my overall ranks the way they normally would be is that there are small concerns between will Ekeler get as many receptions as he got last year? McCaffrey, can he stay healthy? Will Elijah Mitchell eat into him a little bit? So there's some concerns, slight concerns there, but that's why McCaffrey and Ekeler are Tier 1. Tier 2, the guy that I think is most interesting here is Nick Chubb. 4 straight seasons of averaging over 100 yards from scrimmage. Kareem Hunt no longer there. He vacates 158 touches. Now, we like Jerome Ford as kind of a late-round flyer, but his hamstring's acting up. Last year, in the 8 games in which he got 20 or more touches, he averaged 19 fantasy points per game. I would argue that Nick Chubb is the best pure running back in the NFL from a skill standpoint. And we expect this offense to just be a lot better. Full year of Deshaun Watson. Second year in the system. We're excited about this Browns offense, and so I think Nick Chubb will probably touch the ball a little bit less, but they're going to be in scoring position a lot more often. They're going to be a lot more efficient. I could see him having less total carries this year and then winding up with 18 touchdowns because they're just going to get close because Watson's going to move the ball down the field. They're still going to want to run. It's still going to be cold weather in Cleveland, and then Chubb, who's so efficient at the goal line, just punches it in. So I really like Nick Chubb. I have him at running back 5. That's ahead of ADP. I've seen him going as late as running back 10 in some places. Silly. Chubb's going to have a monster year.
Yeah, he would be my RB3, and there's a bit of a divergence between the fantasy market and the betting market where Nick Chubb is the clear favorite for the rushing title, clear favorite to have the most rushing touchdowns of anyone, and I think that's not necessarily reflected in his ADP, where I would take Nick Chubb. I would take him ahead of Saquon and Bijan because I think I'm just a little bit worried about Tyler Algier and Cordero Patterson with Bijan. I understand the upside, but I think Nick Chubb is just so locked into his role.
Well, the question becomes with Bijan, how involved will he be in the passing game? We know the Falcons are going to be a very run-heavy team, and we know Bijan is an all-world talent. The question becomes is he getting 2 or 3 receptions a game, or is he getting 6?
Yep.
Because that's the thing that we just don't know. We just don't know how good is Desmond Ridder going to be. Again, if they want to be run heavy and they still actually want to involve Drake London and Kyle Pitts a little bit more in the passing game, and to your point, Cordero Patterson's still a good player. You can still be effective with him. Tyler Algier did have 1,000 yards last year. You could see Arthur Smith doing something super annoying for fantasy managers. He's just trying to win ball games. He didn't care about us.
Yep. I would say Bijan is more likely than Chubb to be RB1, but Chubb is more likely than Bijan just to be a top 5 running back. He's got a higher floor to me in terms of it could go weird with Bijan
I think that's a great call. I agree with you. I do think that if if Nick Chubb gets to 18 touches, I mean, like, Nick Chubb also has
Yeah, he
number
can
one running back in
definitely do it.
fantasy
Yep.
potential.
To round out Tier 2, after Nick Chubb at 5, Tony Pollard at 6, Derrick Henry at 7, Jonathan Taylor, who is still not practicing, at 8, Josh Jacobs, who has not been at Raiders camp, at 9, and then Joe Mixon at 10 here, Barry.
Joe Mixon is such a fascinating case. His ADP has been depressed all season long because it was just like, well, there's some off-season trouble. He might be suspended, and we'll talk about that in a second. And, oh, by the way, the Bengals are going to sign somebody. They're going to replace Samaje Perine with somebody, and they haven't. They haven't replaced it yet. And so Joe Mixon has had 5 straight years averaging at least 19 touches a game. He's top 3 among running backs in red zone touches per game last year. Second most carries inside the 10-yard line. Like, they used him a lot. Some bad luck, and it's a little bit of inefficiency as well. But volume is king in fantasy football, and Joe Mixon is going to get it on one of the best offenses in the NFL. To me, he's the last bell cow running back. There are some legal concerns, and if a case goes against him, maybe the NFL suspends him. But there's no. You hate to talk about stuff like this because the charges are serious, and I don't want to diminish that. But from a pure only fantasy football perspective, the fact of the matter is that it does not seem like the suspension, if there is a suspension this year, it would be just a couple of games.
That brings us to Tier 3. These are running backs 11 to 14, starting with Travis Etienne, rookie Jahmyr Gibbs, who's taken in the top 15 of the draft, Ramondre Stevenson, who now has Ezekiel Elliott in his backfield, and Breece Hall, who has Dalvin Cook in his backfield. Who out of these 4, Barry, is the most intriguing?
It's Jahmyr Gibbs, who was on my short list to be one of my fantasy ride or die this year. He's literally on the short list. 11 of the last 12 running backs to be drafted in the first round saw over 200 touches in their rookie season. I think that's what Gibbs gets. Remember, there's 421 running back touches from last season that are not accounted for with DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. Obviously, Dave Montgomery is there as well, but Swift, who saw at least 70 targets each of the past 2 seasons, and he missed some time, Gibbs is going to be a massive part of this passing attack. And if David Montgomery ever went away for some reason, if he got injured, Gibbs would be a top 5 fantasy running back. As it is, he comes in at running back 12 for me.
That brings us to Tier 4, which kicks off at 15 for Najee Harris, 16 Alexander Mattison, the new lead man in the Minnesota backfield, Kenneth Walker at 17, Aaron Jones at 18, Dameon Pierce at 19, and then James Conner closes out Tier 4 at number 20 overall.
Yeah, I mean, look, I like Aaron Jones, who's had 4 straight years of finishing as a top 12 running back. We talked about this yesterday. We think this Packers offense under Jordan Love might be better than expected. But James Conner, again, just another bell cow running back. I get it. The Cardinals are going to be bad. Colt McCoy under center. But still, 1 of 7 running backs with 1,000 scrimmage yards and at least 8 touchdowns each of the past 2 years. He played at least 90% of the snaps in 5 of his last 7 games. He's a really good pass catcher. Even when they're down, he's going to be part of the passing attack. I think James Conner is a value this year.
Yep, very unexciting, but he's going to get you volume. And a lesser version of Joe Mixon in that regard, where it's the same thing. You're not excited, but he will produce.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't know. Like in terms of Conner and Mixon, no one likes them, but like you're going to look up at the end of the year and they're going to have over 200 touches, and they're going to just by pure volume of being out there produce fantasy points for you.
Yep.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and RotoWorld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from RotoWorld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.